you become essentially the world's leading executive coach. What led you there? Like, how did this happen?
There was nothing called executive coaching. I just made it up. The measure of success is not me or my client. It's everyone around my client. For 45 years, I didn't get paid if they didn't get better. Don't make coaching about yourself, your ego, and how smart you think you are. Make it about the great people you work with. Hey, I got ranked #1 coach in the world for years. How? Nobody knows I'm a good coach. You know what I've got? I got the #1 customers in the world.
Why are you giving all your knowledge, information, and tucking it into MarshallGoldsmith.ai?
I have 4 qualities that enabled me to do this. The first thing is,
Marshall Goldsmith, thank you so much for joining me on the Mark Divine Show. Super stoked to have you here, sir. How are you today?
oh, thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you for your service.
I appreciate you saying that. Thank you for that great story we were just talking about before I press record about going up in a Top Gun plane and having to do all the dipsy dunker stuff. Fascinating, and that must have been a heck of a ride. I've never been in the back seat of a fighter jet. Tell us about that.
The first thing is, I don't know how many, I thought it was like 6 Gs or something. It was ridiculous, right?
Yeah, I
So
bet.
the pilot says, let's go up. Now, up is like straight up.
Straight up, yeah.
I'm sitting in the back seat going, up is bad, up is bad, up is very bad. They stall the plane out. I quickly learned there's one thing worse than up. You know what that was?
Down.
I mean, straight down.
That's something for a 60-year-old guy with no training to
man.
suddenly experience that.
Earth is coming at my face about 500 miles an hour. And then flying upside down. Oh my God, that's hard on you. But you know what? I made one commitment. I said, I'm going to die before I throw up. And I did not.
You didn't throw up?
Final story. We get to the very ending. Of course, the pilot was doing nothing but jerk me around, right?
Of course.
We get to the very ending. I'm so proud of myself. He's going to land, right? So I'm sure I'm green with nausea, but I'm going to land. He circles around. You know what he did? He touches.
Does it touch and go? Of course.
I go straight up again. I have never said so many swear words in 1 minute.
I believe it. And nobody could hear you except for the pilot, so you're all in your.
Oh
you're all
my
good,
God.
yeah.
I am screaming at this guy, swearing, yelling,
But no regrets, right? That was quite an experience, I'm sure.
You only live once.
Very true. So, you become essentially the world's leading executive coach. What led you there? Like, how did this happen?
I'll give you the story, how I got into leadership development and coaching. Leadership development, a lot of life is luck. Of life is luck. So what happened is I'm fortunate enough to meet a very, very generous man named Dr. Paul Hersey. He was the highest paid consultant in the world in our field at the time. He let me go through his leadership development class.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going, man, this guy is great.
Was that the Hersey that worked with Blanchard? Hersey Blanchard's situational leadership model?
That's it. So
Yeah.
I go, and Ken Blanchard worked with us too.
Right.
Another great person, by the way.
Yeah, I've met Ken. Great guy.
Oh, he's a great guy. So I go to his class. I think, man, I want to be that guy when I grow up. I want to be like him and Ken Blanchard, right?
Mm-hmm.
I did one thing that was smart. I said, I'll sit in the back and serve the coffee and move, clean the tables, whatever. Just let me sit there. One day I got double booked and Ken couldn't do it. He said, can you do what I do? I said, I don't know. He said, I'll pay $1,000 for a day.
Right.
I was making $15,000 a year. You know what I said? Yes, sir.
Roger that.
That's how I got into leadership development. And in coaching, I met a CEO of a company called Warner Lambert. And he said, I got this kid working for us, young, smart, dedicated jerk. Guy was arrogant, stubborn. He said, worth a fortune to me if that kid would change his behavior. I said, I like fortunes. Maybe I can help him. He said, I doubt it. I came up with an idea. I said, I'll work with the kid for a year. He gets better, pay me. You don't get better, it's free. You know what he said? Sold. There was nothing called executive coaching. I just made it up.
Do you think you actually coined the term executive coaching then?
No.
Oh yeah, but you made up there were no models, right? Like there wasn't a course you could take in executive coaching, a certificate program like they have nowadays.
No one certified me.
Right, you certified yourself. That's fascinating. So I'm sure most listeners, if we have a professional audience, I understand what executive coaching is, or coaching in general, but give us your perspective. Like, what is it, and what's the value of it, and why consider it if you're a leader?
Another thing I learned from Dr. Paul Hersey is never get into semantic debates about this word and that word. So I'll just tell you what I do. My mission is I help successful leaders achieve positive long-term change in behavior for themselves, their people, and their teams. That's all I do. So if you do a Google search, helping successful leaders in quotes, the first 500 references, 450 are me. So all I do is I work with leaders. I help them get confidential feedback. They figure out what they want to improve. The organization agrees on all this stuff. Who are their stakeholders? I teach them how to respond to stakeholders, how to follow up, and actually achieve measurable change over time.
How do you succeed at doing that? Is it the quality of the questions you ask them or get them to ask themselves? Or is it the feedback or a combination of these things?
The measure of success is not me or my client. It's everyone around my client. For 45 years, I didn't get paid if they didn't get better. You get paid for results, you learn humility. The client I coach I spent the most amount of time with, back to your what's the key variable? The client I coached I spent the most amount of time with didn't improve at all and didn't get paid. The client I spent the least amount of time with improved more than anyone I ever coached. Fantastic to start with. 200 people got better and I did get paid. Now I can mention his name. His name is Alan Mulally. Alan was the CEO at the time of Boeing Commercial Aircraft. He went over to become CEO of Ford. Did one of the great turnarounds. The stock goes from 101 to 1840. He was CEO of the year in the United States and had a 97% approval rating from every employee in a union company as a CEO. Think about that one.
That's impressive.
Alan's an unbelievably great guy. So Alan and I are working on a book together now. So he's a buddy of mine. So I said, Alan, of all the people I coached, you improved the most. You were great to start with. I spent the least amount of time coaching you. What should I learn about coaching from you? I said, Marshall, you got one challenge as a coach, customer selection. You work with smart, dedicated, hardworking people, you win. You work with people who don't care, you lose. And he said, don't make coaching about yourself, your ego, and how smart you think you are. Make it about the great people you work with. Hey, I got ranked #1 coach in the world for years. How? Nobody knows I'm a good coach. You know what I've got? I got the #1 customers in the world.
Well, it's interesting that those who aren't good customers generally aren't seeking executive coaching either.
Well, that's interesting. Oftentimes, those who need help the least want it the most.
That's saying what I just said. You flipped it. Yeah, those who need it the least are seeking it because they're trying to go from good to great or great to greater. But those who are the problem children who really need it, the ones with the big egos, generally aren't seeking it. If they're taking executive coaching or using it, oftentimes it's prescribed to them by their board or by their boss. And so they have kind of a lackluster attitude toward it. And I'm sure you've worked with a lot of those people. What's your process? I know you already kind of loosely talked about getting feedback and probing for, framing better questions and setting different kind of goals. But what specifically? Can you share your process?
Oh, yeah. My process, by the way, I give away everything. So I give away everything I know. So you go to my website, you go to YouTube, hundreds of videos. So none of the stuff I do is I keep secret.
You don't have any proprietary information, in other words.
Well, I guess not. I give it all away. So it's not that.
Sorry, it's hard to have proprietary information these days anyways, right? So you can try, but
I don't even try. I give it all away. So anyway, what I do is, let's say you're the future CEO and I've been asked to coach you. Well, the first thing is I describe my process. I say, if I work with you, you will get confidential feedback. You will pick important behaviors to improve. You will follow up on a regular basis. You will apologize for your mistakes publicly, and you will do this over and over and over again, practicing something called feed forward. You ask for ideas, you listen, you thank people, and then we're going to measure improvement. And then I always say, if you don't want to do that, it's okay. I just won't work with you.
Right.
I'm wasting my time. Let's say that you say then, okay, I want to do this. Then I involve your boss, the CEO. Describe the process. Then you two agree on who are the key stakeholders. Typically, this might be board members, peers, direct reports. I interview all of them one-on-one. I talk about, what are you doing well? What do you need to do better? What situations bring out the best in you? Which ones bring out the worst in you? And then any ideas for you? I develop a very long and detailed report, which is phenomenally painful to
Oh, I bet. That sounds like the hard part.
Oh, my God. You know who David Chang is? The famous chef?
I have heard of him. I don't know him.
Yeah, he wrote a book about me coaching him. It is hilarious. It's a New York Times bestseller.
Oh, that's funny.
The guy that's now the CEO of Walmart said, my coaching session with him made his trip to the dentist to get a root canal operation feel like a happy moment, right?
Oh, that's awesome. So you're asking some really difficult questions that people aren't used to being asked, probably, right?
Well, no, I give them feedback. They're not used to hearing what, look, they don't know what people really think about them. Let's tell the truth, man. The higher up you go, right? All they do is laugh their dumb jokes and pretend they're smart.
No, you're absolutely right. I remember the first 360 assessment that I did was quite the eye opener. There's no part of me that thought I was perfect, but I was not ready for some of that feedback. And
Oh,
yeah, everybody needs that perspective. So really a big part of what you're doing is perspective taking and helping the CEO or the coach, the client, make new perspectives about how other people are perceiving them
right.
and how they show up and their behavior and their moods and their energy.
Hi, Mark Devine here from SealFit. After 2 years of development, I'm super stoked to announce the launch of SealFit supplements and our first product, SealFit Electro Greens. This is the highest quality organic greens you can find, combined with electrolytes into one powerful supplement. Take with 8 ounces of water in the morning or add to your smoothie to get your day kicked off right with the proper nutritional supplementation and hydration support. And you can also use it as a pick-me-up booster during the day or after a workout. It dissolves immediately, and believe it or not, it tastes great. I've had many testimonials already saying it's the best tasting greens that they have ever tried. So, hoo-yah, SealFitSupplements.com, or you can find it on Amazon by searching for SealFit Electro Greens. Hoo-yah. Let's do this. Divine out. That is delicious.
What are the biggest challenges that leaders are facing these days that you've coached?
Let me give you, I'll say 5 or 6. Number one is global thinking. In the past, leaders was much more domestic or even local. I mean, it started out in the cave, right? So as time has progressed, it's become more and more, everything is global. Number two is understanding not diversity just in an American perspective, but cross-cultural diversity, which is very challenging. Number three is what I call technological savvy, not being a technologist, but you have to understand how technology influences your business. You can't sit there and hide in the sand anymore. And then number four, I'd say, is building alliances and partnerships. In the past, leadership was more top-down. Now leadership is more horizontal or cross or around. And then finally, I'd say, the leader is facilitator as opposed to leader as boss. See, Peter Drucker said the leader of the past knew how to tell, the leader of the future knows how to ask. Most of us manage knowledge workers. They know more about what they're doing than their boss does. You can't tell them what to do and how to do it. You have to ask, listen, learn, and involve them. So the entire role of leadership is changing. I wrote an article in Chief Executive Magazine that said, as leaders become more and more and more effective, their feedback is worse and worse. Which is true, because what's happened is the expectations have changed so much. Somebody asked me a question, are leaders more bullies than ever before? What an idiot question. I asked the people who built the pyramids about bullies. I mean, they had whips, right?
Right.
Yeah, they had whips. Leaders are much nicer today. They're less racist, less sexist, more open-minded, and their feedback is worse and worse. Why? The expectations are so different today.
Yeah, and also the organization, the higher up you go, the more insular it becomes to that feedback, or insular you become to that feedback.
Back to this point, I have sessions at my home with retiring CEOs, which are hilarious. They run the gamut from hilarious to tragic, by the way. One of them was Mike Duke. Mike was CEO of Walmart. He's just a great guy, right? Funny guy. So Mike says, I was CEO of Walmart. I told this joke. And everybody laughed at my joke. It was a clean joke. And I always start off meetings with my joke. People loved the joke. Then he said, I retired. I'm in this group. I tell my joke. And he said, nobody laughed. Then he said, well, they must be grumpy. I'm in another group. Tell a joke. No one laughs. Finally said, my wife said, Mike, you idiot. Did you actually believe that stupid joke was funny?
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
You were in the military. And,
Yeah.
how about when you get that star? What happens to your jokes?
Yeah. I agree wholeheartedly with how leadership is changing. I wrote a book a couple years ago called Staring Down the Wolf, and it was really talking about leaders need to stare down their fear wolf to overcome their negative conditioning, their trauma-induced shadow crap that is essentially, that they're bringing into their relationships. Because I've noticed that leaders are often the limitation on their team. They're the limiting factor because of their expectation that they have to have all the answers or they have to be the one, who's in charge. And that's not facilitating. So we say the team is the new leader, and the leader essentially, their job is essentially to remove the friction and remove the barriers to the team's performance. I'd love to talk a little bit about global mindset. You talked about having global thinking and like true diversity is a really important skill for leaders, even small companies, right? You're like we have a small company, but I've got coaches from 46 different countries in my organization, you know. So we are a global organization, even though we're tiny. One of the unique things about global mindset is this cultural intelligence, right? The ability to really understand how other languages, you know, affect people's thinking and how other cultures operate. The only way to really get culture intelligence is spend time in other countries. Develop yourself to be able to have that type of world-centric perspective. How do you help leaders with this particular nuance?
Personally, I've been to 102 countries.
Have you?
And
Amazing.
on American Airlines, I have 11 million frequent flyer miles. So I have spent a large part of my life in other countries. And I'm going to just share one thing because we could spend all day on this topic, but I'll just give people one suggestion that I learned from a man named Roosevelt Thomas. Roosevelt Thomas was the world's expert on diversity, and he taught me a concept that I find very useful, not just for U.S. diversity, but diversity around the world. It's called referent group.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone typically has what's called a referent group. I refer to them, I would like to be like these people. For me, my reference group was Ken Blanchard, Paul Hersey. I wanted to be them when I grew up, and pretty much have. They were the people I wanted to become. If you really understand people's referent group, their behavior makes sense. Although they may be in a very different culture, different world, who do they identify with? Who do they want to be like? And we all have a different reference group. For some people, it's the individual. Okay. You may or may not like that. You may think they're greedy, but that's okay. For some people, it's the family. Okay, that's fine. For some, it's the organization. It might be the Navy. It might be the Navy SEALs, which is slightly different than just the Navy. It might be the military. Might not be. So, for example, many people in Navy SEALs, the reference group was Navy. And how about the Air Force, another part of the service? Well, not so much. Not so much. So really in understanding people, if you understand the concept of who has a reference group, a couple of good things happen. One, you don't have to hate people. I mean, you were in the military. Sometimes you have to kill people, but you don't have to hate them.
You don't have to hate them. It's interesting. We didn't talk about this in the SEALs. You know, I've done a lot of different warrior trainings, and one of them was from the Apache Scouts. Their training taught you that, you know, the warrior was meant to love their enemy, and they were the last to pick up the lance or the weapon. And I think that it'd be, you know, great to develop that sensitivity to the abhorrence of war and how violence really is the last resort. Because, you know, it seems like we kind of lead with the violence these days, at least politically. You know, not necessarily the military, but you want the military to be the restraining factor, not like, you know, pushing for war. Anyway, it's a little bit of a slippery slope. We won't go down that hill right now, but that's what diversity is to me. It's like to see and recognize the sameness, to appreciate and love the sameness in everybody, in all cultures, while simultaneously reveling in the diversity and the differences.
Right. It's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. And it's not something that's really, you can't teach it in the classroom. You know, it has to be developed, right? This is part of the coaching process, which is the soft underbelly. Is there's the holding up the mirror and getting the individual to reflect and ask better questions and set different kind of goals and do the behavioral modification. But then there's that developmental aspect, the emotional healing, kind of the waking up, right? The opening the heart, you know, to be more inclusive and appreciate that sameness. Is there anything that you do to facilitate that type of like emotional and spiritual awakening in your coaching process?
I'd say yes and no. The yes part is one of the things I always teach people is to be careful of the way they stereotype themselves.
Yes, because that becomes a big limitation. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not talking so much about psychological trauma because some of the issues you're talking about, actually, I don't deal with very much. I don't deal much with that at all. But I do deal with self-stereotyping. For example, I'm coaching a CEO. They'll say stuff like, I can't listen. I've never been able to listen. I can't listen. I'll say, well, why not? You got something stuck in your ears? Do you have an incurable genetic defect that is prohibiting you from listening? I'm like, well, that's kind of a good point. Well, we stereotype ourselves. Let me give you a simple example. I was brought up in a small town in Kentucky called Valley Station, Kentucky, low income, low education environment. My high school came in second to last place in Kentucky in academic achievement. We were defeated by Appalachia. Not good.
Not good.
Not good. My elementary school would be the bottom of the high school. So the odds on me writing 4 New York Times bestsellers from there were snowball's chance in hell, right? But I had some different messages. My mother, you are smart, you are smart, you are smart. She hammered I was smart in my head constantly. You can go to college, you can do these things. And she also, see, my dad had a little gas station. She want me working at the gas station? No. She said, you have no mechanical skills and you will never have any mechanical skills the rest of your life. This hammered into my head, right? So I took, I took the Army aptitude test, right? The part of the stage part I took is called the mechanical aptitude test. I scored in the bottom 2% of the United States, right? So now it's no longer my mom and my dad. It's the United States Army. It's trained psychologist. You have no mechanical skills. I'm 26 years old. I'm taking a class at UCLA, and the teacher says, what are you good at? What are you no good at? What are you good at? Smart, blah, blah, blah. No good. No mechanical skills, never have any skills. He says, how are your mathematical skills? Oh, perfect score on the SAT Math Achievement Test. Hey, how about hand-to-eye coordination? Oh, I play pinball games, shoot pool. He said, why can you play pinball game and shoot pool? You can't hammer nails. And why can you solve complex mathematical problems but you can't even solve simple mechanical problems? You know why?
Mindset, right?
That's who I was told I was.
Right.
I lived that out till I was 26, 27 years old. It never dawned on me. There was no logical reason I had no mechanical skills.
That's interesting. That underlying conditioning, we call it background of obviousness. It's obvious to others, but completely hidden from view, from yourself. Until someone, like in your case, this teacher, this professor holds up that mirror and says, you know what, there's no logical reason for you to say, for not having mechanical, it's just a belief system. But and this guy's dovetails to your psychological comment. It's not the purview of executive coaches to do therapy, but a lot of times some of that conditioning is rooted in some sort of emotional trauma.
Yeah.
Right.
Not an expert on that.
Right. No, I'm just saying sometimes you have to parse those out, right? You can deal with cognitive behavioral therapy even if it's rooted in trauma, and oftentimes that's enough. And sometimes it's not.
Yeah. And again, you see, you have to realize my sample database of people are CEOs or could be CEOs of multi-billion-dollar companies. So these people are incredibly well socially adjusted.
Right. They're already at the top of their game. They're generally not,
And I'm actually not an expert at coaching even, quote, normal people.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It'd probably be a frustrating process. You talk about decentralizing knowledge and, technology, AI, whatnot, is allowing us to do that. I had someone approach me wanting to put me into an AI and all my knowledge and stuff. And I was like, interesting. I could see it happening someday, but I didn't think the technology was ready. And I guess nor was I. So I just passed on it for now. Yeah. But you've gone all in. So let's kind of ferret out, what's it all about for you? Why are you giving all your knowledge, information, and tucking it into marshallgoldsmith.ai? And what are some of the pros and cons and possible pitfalls?
For me, I've always wanted to give away all I know. So I don't have this, quote, intellectual property that I'm kind of saving for anything. And I've been trying to do this for years with, I'd say, complete and total failure for 20 years. I tried interactive videos. Right. I tried computer programs and branching, all kinds of stuff. Finally, this new technology's come along. This stuff is ungodly good. So I'll just give you some examples. I went into this with the goal, if you could ask my computer about any question to me, it would answer about as well as me 80% of the time and answer about 80% of the questions. That was my original goal coming in. That is gone. It can answer any question better than me pretty much and answer 100 times as many questions.
How do you think it can answer better than you?
Well, let me give you a couple of examples. One of my clients, I can mention the names of my clients. Some people say I can't mention the names of their clients. I can mention the names of all my clients. They're all in the books, right? Mm-hmm. Dr. Patrick Frias, I'm a volunteer. I'm a volunteer for the Navy, but also a volunteer for Children's Hospital. So he's the head of San Diego Rady Children's Hospital. They're in an emergency. He's going to be a co-CEO. He said, tell me about being a co-CEO. What are the good things, bad things, challenges? How can I deal with this? It's not an easy question. There aren't that many co-CEOs in the world. KKR has co-CEOs, but it's very unusual. I asked the bot, I mean, it was brilliant. Then he said, one of the mentions is boundary setting. Tell me more about boundary setting for a co-CEO. I mean, it was mind-blowing how good it is.
Is it just drawing from your content database, or is it
No.
or is it drawing from a much broader and then characterizing it as if it was you, giving the answer?
Back to your good question. My daughter wanted to trick it. So she said, how is your coaching related to utilitarian philosophy? I don't even know what utilitarian philosophy is. It studies utilitarian philosophy. It studies my coaching. It knows me. And it says, if he had studied utilitarian philosophy, this is how he would answer the question. It answers it in my voice in 5 seconds.
Amazing.
And by the way, with amazing accuracy.
Right. Is it text-based, or do you have a digital avatar speaking?
Well, it's text. It's moving to the next phase. It's going to be moving to audio. The next phase, it's moving to video. And then it's going to be video in multiple languages.
Incredible.
Oh, it's mind-blowing. It is mind-blowing. Now, one other thing I have to say for an old man, this is cool. I mean, look, I'm 75. Some young guy says to me, oh, do you know anything about artificial intelligence? I don't know much, but my computer bot might be able.
Yeah. My AI assistant might help you out there.
Yeah, my AI. So, I mean, I have 4 qualities that enabled me to do this. One, I've got a ton of content. If you don't have a ton of content, this doesn't work. It's too boring. 2, I've got a ton of followers. I mean, just on LinkedIn, I have 1.5 million followers. So I got lots of followers. And if nobody knows who you are, you can give everything away. But guess what? No one cares. 3, I'm willing to give it all away, which is somewhat unusual. And then 4, I had somebody pay for it. They put over $1 million into this thing.
Oh, is that right? Tell us about why $1 million was needed. What? Yeah, I mean, you can't just set an AI loose on your content and have it chase it down and study it, or
you could, but mine is not only $1 million of engineering. I spent 100 hours playing with this, working on it. It's got an edit function.
Yeah, so you had to train it.
I got to train it. And by the way, my experience is like anything else. You want a personal AI, there's a difference between I did it and I did it right. Yeah, and you can give all my books or any knowledge and put it in AI. And by the way, the generic computer bots all know who I am. So they'll all do a pretty good job. On the other hand, they often make mistakes. See, this guy doesn't make mistakes because I can edit it. Now, very good point. In the computer business like this, AI bot, they're all biased. Any computer
Of
AI
course.
bot is biased.
Biased by the training and the algorithms that it's basically fed to go.
Let me tell you what I mean by bias. The extreme example was the Google AI bot Gemini that just blew up. I don't know if you read about it.
I do. Yeah.
It was embarrassing how bad it was. It was all left-wing San Francisco biased. I'm not into politics, but it was clearly biased.
Yeah.
Anytime you ask a question, it's going to be an answer is biased. If you ask my computer bot what is leadership, okay, I'll give you an answer. There are 100 answers you could give. Why this answer? Well, it's biased by something to give that answer. In my computer bot, I'm the bias.
It's biased to come out sounding like through your lens. It's not going to allow things that you wouldn't have said as best as it can.
As best I can. And I am the bias. At least you know what the bias is.
You're the bias.
Yeah, I am the bias. And by the way, back to Dr. Hersey, I'm not saying my answers are the best answers. Like you asked me about coaching. There's 1,000 answers to, what is coaching? I just told you what it means to me. Well, I'm good at that. I can't say it's a better answer. If I ask you the question, you'd probably give me a very different answer.
Here's what I'm trying to grapple with. In a coaching relationship, you're the one asking the questions.
Well, no, you are making some assumptions. You're assuming that my coaching is the same as yours. It really is not. And you're making assumptions about a coaching relationship. I am not a traditional coach in any way. My coaching is largely, the traditional coaches don't give advice. I give advice, and not only do they get advice from me, they get advice from everyone around them. I teach my clients how to get advice and how to listen to it. I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's just different. Stakeholder-centered coaching.
Right. Is it geared toward the same audience, or is it geared more toward the general public for generalized?
Much broader audience, number one. But number two, it's not a coaching bot.
It's for insight,
Information,
general information and help. Got it.
like how can I be a more effective delegator?
It's not going to devour your coaching business because suddenly the executive's like, why do I need Marshall in person? I've got his AI.
It should devour any knowledge business I have because it's smarter than me. No, if you have a question, ask me versus it. It generally wins.
Yeah, but coaching is so much more than information.
Well, again, you use the term coaching as if there is a uniform definition and you're describing it.
In any definition of coaching, it's more than information.
Anyway, my coaching is different, though, than your coaching. Not better or worse, just different. My coaching, I teach people to ask for information, to listen and learn. My coaching is not predominantly introspection. My coaching is predominantly learn from everyone around you. Different. Not better or worse, just different.
This AI, Marshall Goldsmith.ai, is it going to be limited to Marshall Goldsmith, or are you going to open it up to other experts?
Look, anybody in the world can go to Marshall Goldsmith, Marshall has two L's, marshallgoldsmith.ai, ask it any question you want to. It's available, it's free. And by the way, one of the things I love about it, there's no catch. There is no secret buzzer. Well, that's free, but if you pay more, you get blah, blah, blah.
Here's the upsell.
Yeah, there's no secret door here. It's all just free. This is my philanthropy. So I'm giving away everything I know to as many humans as I possibly can in the time I have left to do it, period.
You call that knowledge philanthropy. That's a cool term.
Yeah.
So you already talked about kind of what's coming with it. So eventually it'll be video in multiple languages. What about immersive reality? Do you see any kind of combination with AR, VR down the road?
Have you tried the new Apple Vision yet?
Not yet. I've heard it's pretty extraordinary.
Well, look, as a product, it's a clunker. I mean, it's heavy, it's expensive, But if you look into it, you're looking at the future. You're looking at the future. It's like you're in a room talking to a human being. And by the way, one other thing about all new technology, I'm not naive. I know that potential negative downsides of new technology are huge. For example, 25 years ago, I wrote an article that said there's going to be something called instant download TV quality audio-visual transmission over something like what is now an internet. So when that happens, media addiction will surpass drug addiction and alcohol addiction combined as a social problem. We're there. Media addiction is a complete and total societal disaster. Average kids flunking out of school, 55 hours a week on non-academic media. It's a disaster. Look, AI has the potential to be an unmitigated disaster as well. My feeling is it's going to happen. This train has left the station. It is going to happen. Option A, make the best of it, do something good, or option B, sit back and whine. I'm going with it. Let's try to do something good here.
Yeah. Do you have an optimistic view of the future, near term and long term?
Future for what, though?
Humanity in general?
Really not an expert. And one thing I'm pretty good at is if I'm not an expert, try not to answer questions. People listen to me as if I'm an expert on a topic. And I learned one thing from my friend Alan Mulally. Alan Mulally, the great leader, you know what he said? If he's ever asked a question, it says, what's your suggestion? He says, is there anybody else can answer this question better than me? If the answer is yes, then maybe I shouldn't talk. One of the things I teach the new admirals, one of my coaching guys, J.P. Garnier, said, I said, what'd you learn about leadership as being a CEO? He said, my suggestions become orders. He said, if they're smart, they're orders. They're stupid, they're orders. If I want them to do orders, they're orders or not. I trained the admirals in the Navy for 9 years. What is the first thing I teach to do admirals? You get that star? Your suggestions become orders.
Mm-hmm.
That admiral makes a suggestion. What is the normal response?
Yeah, aye, sir.
Aye, aye, sir. That's it. I try never to answer questions in any public forum if I don't think I'm an expert on the topic, on any topic, politics, future, anything. Hell.
Mm-hmm. Where do you think the place for the type of things that I teach, like you can say this, you're not an expert, so you don't have to answer this, but meditation, breath work, visualization, these skills I found phenomenal working with my leaders, and I'm curious about your perspective on.
So I'm a Buddhist, so I'm sort of not anti anything you're teaching here.
Oh, that's good to know. Interesting.
I'm a Buddhist, so I think probably what you're teaching is great. I'm just not an expert on teaching it.
Roger that.
So I think the idea is a great idea. I mean, I'd say I'm a Buddhist. And so when you say you're a Buddhist, as you probably know, it doesn't mean too much because there's so many different schools of Buddhism.
That's right.
I'm what I call a philosophical Buddhist. I'm not a metaphysical Buddhist talking about spirits and all that stuff. I'm a philosophical Buddhist about Buddhism and way of living. So a lot of what I wrote a book called The Earned Life, which is basically a Buddhist philosophy book.
Interesting. What's next for you, Marshall?
I'd say it this way. I want to help as many people as I can have a little bit better life in the short time I have left to do it. I'm 75. I'm not going to be here forever. And so I just want to help as many people as can have a little better life. And let's take our call. Maybe one person goes to my bot, hears something today, helps them have a little better life. It's a good call.
That's a good call. That's time well spent.
It's a good, I don't have to do any more than that. People ask me, my mission, if I help you have a little better life, that's enough. And when I coach people, and I tell them that, I said, look, I hope your company makes a fortune, you're rich, blah, blah, blah. But half of them are rich anyway. And a bunch of them are billionaires already. What am I supposed to do? Boost them up to 4.1 billion?
It's not going to make them happier. That's for sure.
It's not going to get the ball over the line. So I said, look, I just want you to have a little better life. And let me tell you one thing that might be good for your listeners on that topic. Ready? In my book, The Earned Life, I talk about our aspiration, our higher purpose. Why are we doing this? What's the meaning of all this? Our ambition, which is our achievements, our actions, which is our day-to-day enjoyment and engagement in the process of life itself. Most of your listeners are not stuck in the aspiration phase. They may have good purpose and aspiration, but they're not lost in it. You're doing things. They're also not lost in the day-to-day phase. They're not watching videos all day or looking for personal pleasure. Most people listening to you are focused on achievement, good and bad. And one of the problems from a Buddhist perspective, focusing on achievement, is called the hungry ghost. The great myth of once I achieve this, I will be happy. Once I achieve this, I will be at peace. Once I achieve this, everything is going to be fine. No, it won't.
It's true.
If achievement would make you happy, the people I coach would all be the happiest people in the world. Over COVID, my friend Mark Thompson and I, we worked with 60 amazing people, leaders in all different walks of life, 600 hours. Some are very happy, some are miserable. Some are happy one week, miserable the next week. Happiness and achievement are independent variables. One of my coaching guys was Albert Bourla, CEO of Pfizer. I called him a few years ago. Albert, how's it going? I'm pretty good. Came up with that vaccine thing. I said, oh, thank you. Maybe saved my life here. Good job. Anything else? Oh, yeah, stock price high, employee engagement goes on and on. He was CEO of the year. So what's your problem? I said, I have a huge problem next year. If his definition of happiness, I have to beat last year, he's not going to get there. There will never be another year like that. By the way, that's one of the problems ex-military people have, which I don't have to tell you. They're doing very deep and meaningful things.
And then it's taken away.
They go back to work in a job that's not that deep and meaningful. They crash.
Right.
They crash because it's hard. It's very, very hard. Happiness and achievement are independent variables. So one message for your listeners, achieve to achieve. But don't ever think achievement is going to make you happy. Michael Phelps won 25 gold medals, more than anyone in history. What do you think about doing after winning 25? Kill himself. Achievement is not going to make you happy. Achievement is good for achievement. Achievement's not going to make you happy. Achievement's not going to help you find peace. It comes from in here, not
That's in there. Right. The Buddhist perspective is that happiness is your natural state. You just have to remove the limitations, the blockages, and the beliefs that it's not there. And one of them is that you have to achieve. The hungry ghost, constantly grasping for more. That's a great message to kind of wrap up. I appreciate that very much. And I share it. Thank you so much.
Hey everyone, this is Mark Devine, founder of SealFit and Unbeatable Mind, and I'm super stoked to announce that my new book, Uncommon, is due out from St. Martin's Press this summer, July 16th. And we've launched a pre-order campaign. You can learn more about that at readuncommon.com to try to get early awareness for the book, which I hope will help a lot of people, where I go and do a deep dive on the 5 mountains of personal mastery: physical, mental, emotional, intuitional, and spiritual. Uncommon, simple principles for an extraordinary life. Check it out at readuncommon.com, and thank you for your support and being part of the change that you want to see in this world. Hoo-yah, Divine out.
Marshall, so I admit you want people to go learn more about you at your AI, Marshall, 2Ls, goldsmith.ai.
Yeah. And very easy. Just go to marshallgoldsmith.ai. Ask as many questions as you want. I give people my email address, marshall@marshallgoldsmith.com. Any questions you have, send me an email. Website, www.marshallgoldsmith.com. And LinkedIn, I can't have more connections because at a certain point you can't do that anymore. But I have
They cut you off.
cut you off. I got lots of followers, so you can do that. So, and also, I live in Nashville, Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
And if any of the nice listeners would ever like to take a walk with me, I go for a walk every day. And you're all, including you, by the way, if you'd ever like to come over and take a walk, I take a walk every day. And I always invite people who hear me to come take a walk. So I've had like hundreds of people just stop by, take a walk. I take a walk anyway, right? It's enjoyable
Right.
for me.
Right.
So you're all invited to come visit Nashville.
Oh, that's terrific. Marshall, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for your contributions in leadership and coaching and to humanity. It's been an honor, sir.
Thank you so much. My honor as well.
Yeah.
Thank you for your
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
As we used to say in the SEALs, booyah.